Long before the fire crossed the sky and long before the sea swallowed the land, the gods learned a truth that could never be unlearned. They learned that the world was not built to last. Not this shape of it, not this order, not this arrangement of power and name and throne. The end was not hidden to them. It was spoken, it was carved, it was remembered. Ragnarok was not a rumor among the gods. This was knowledge. They knew the signs, they knew the timing would be uncertain, but they knew the outcome was not. They would fall. The great bindings would break. The old enemies would return. Fire would meet ice. Blood would soak the roots of the world tree. And the world, as they ruled it, would be undone. Now, this knowledge did not come to them all the same way. Some received it as warning, some as burden, some as challenge, and some quietly, privately, as absolute terror. For to know that you will fall is different from accepting that you must. There are those among those gods who listened carefully to the prophecy, not only to its ending, but to its shape. They heard that the world would rise again, that green would return to the land, that life would continue without asking permission. They understood something difficult and rare, that Ragnarok itself was not annihilation, it was transition. These gods prepared not to rule forever, but to endure the crossing. They hardened themselves not to survive unchanged, but to be broken cleanly. They did not seek escape, they did not seek dominion beyond fate. They accepted the power, like all things, has its season. They believed that yielding was not weaknesses, and that collapse was not failure, but turning of this great cosmic will. So they planted no flags beyond the world they were given. They sought no shelters in young realms. They trusted that the cosmos, left unbound, would remember how to breathe. But not all the gods listened the same way. Others heard the prophecy and fixated only on one truth, that they would lose everything. They saw Ragnarok not as transition, but as theft, not as renewal, but as erasure. They looked upon their halls, their followers, their dominion, and could not imagine a world in which these things no longer answered to them. And to these gods, fate was not sacred, it was the enemy. They asked questions the prophecy did not forbid. What if fate could be delayed? What if it could be weakened? What if it could be outrun? They searched for places where signs were not written, realms untouched by the old songs, worlds whose soil did not remember the gods' names. They reasoned that if Ragnarok belonged to one world, then survival might be found in another. And this was not born out of cruelty, comes from a place of fear. The fear of becoming irrelevant, the fear of surrendering the crown, and the fear that the universe would continue on without them. So they reached outward, not to the thunder or open war, but to claim and influence and take the binding of a very world. They placed the weight upon younger worlds, anchoring their fate to foreign ground. They taught obedience before understanding. They enforced order before balance. They hardened systems that were meant to grow. They told themselves that they were preserving creation. They told themselves they were preventing chaos. But what they were truly doing was exporting their refusal to change. They did not escape Ragnarok, they carried it with them. For fate is not bound to a single land. It follows imbalance. It follows rigidity. It follows power that refuses to loosen its grip. Wherever the gods pressed themselves into the fabric of reality, the weave began to strain. The younger worlds built under structures that were not meant for them. Roots tangled where they should have been spread freely. Growth slowed. Resistance formed. The irony was complete, though unseen by those who feared it most. The gods who accepted Ragnarok prepared a path forward. The gods who resisted it accelerated its arrival. For Ragnarok was never a punishment, it is a correction. It came not because the gods were evil, but because they were immovable. And when power becomes immovable, the chaos moves it. When the signs finally aligned and the old bindings fell, the world burned as foretold. But the fire did not judge, it did not sort, it did not spare. Gods fell beside monsters. Heroes fell behind kings. Innocents fell without explanation. Not because they were unworthy, but because the collapse does not recognize titles. Those who accepted the turning met the end with open eyes. Those who sought to outrun it found that no realm was distant enough. For Ragnarok does not belong to a place, it belongs to a pattern. And when the smoke cleared and the world did as it always done, it began again. Not restored, not corrected, but changed. The older order did not return whole. nor should it have. What survived was not dominance, but continuity, not authority, but possibility. And in the quiet that followed, the lesson lingered, unspoken but undeniable. The end of the world is not the end of life. The fear of collapse can be more destructive than the collapse itself. And the greatest mistake power can ever make is believing that it must rule forever to have mattered at all. And this was the true meaning behind Ragnarok. Not the fall of the gods, but the test placed before them. And not all of these gods would pass that test.